You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Harry's wife. Harry did not go home. What's this then? Harry being a dirty stop-out? Let's find out. One aspect of all of this material about Harry's wife is quite entertaining, and that's the extent to which speculation runs rife. Evidence appears. It's analysed to determine its veracity. There are many people that spend a considerable amount of time and forensic ability poring over the evidence, making links and unearthing matters, and putting forward a compelling case to demonstrate certain behaviours of Harry's wife, including some of her chicanery and snake-like behaviours. In other instances, there's a lot of hot air that's expelled with regard to does it mean this, does it mean that, as people with little else to do prattle on about it. Then there are the instances of in between where there is something that's not quite right, and those internet sleuths spend their time trying to find out what it might be. Of course, there are tidbits of information that's put forward from a variety of different people, and this all creates a collage, if you will, of different instances and provides your glorious narrator with a marvellous opportunity to dive into these depositories of evidence and let you make up your own mind about the veracity of it. Do you see it just as tittle-tattle? Do you see it as credible? Do you see it as cast-iron evidence? I always leave that up to you. But what I do is utilise these examples, these hypotheses, these situations, for the purposes of analysis and explanation, so that where it's determined to be the case, you can then understand, right, okay, I believe that that is the case, and therefore what's going on behind it. You've seen time and time again, so many people get it wrong, from supposed body language experts that don't understand narcissism, interpreting people's behaviours incorrectly, to members of the press opining that it's because of this or because of that, again failing to realise that the reason that Harry's wife behaves as she does is because she's a narcissist, and the way that Harry behaves is as a consequence of his responses to the manipulations that he's subjected to in his own emotional thinking. And, of course, the consequent impacts upon everybody else, the normals, the other narcissists in the royal family, and so on and so forth. Here, there's speculation that Harry has remained in London, and he didn't actually go back to Los Angeles after his recent court appearances. This has come in the St. Harry's Wife's thread on Reddit. They use the full name, and Build the Herd has posted something from Harry's wife's mole. She uses the full name, as you know, I don't call her that, which states, I'm supposed to believe Harry's going to fly 10 hours to spend 90 minutes at Coronation and take another 10 hours back to California, only to fly back to London again a few days later. I've been told Harry is still in the United Kingdom and never left since his appearance at London's High Court. Now, whether that's accurate or not, I leave that up to you. But it is interesting that there is a suggestion that rather than him jet back after his court appearance to then come back again in a couple of weeks' time, that he's actually stayed in London. Could this be accurate? Well, the individual concerned doesn't appear to have put forward any actual evidence to support this proposition. But we can look at it further through the lens of understanding the narcissistic dynamic to determine, could this be the case? On the one hand, Harry's wife needs to keep control over him, and therefore that would lend to suggesting that she'd be wanting him to return post-haste. You go over there for the court appearance, come back. Because, of course, with him being proximate, it's easier to assert control over him. Perhaps he gets a respite period and receives some spicy poontang. It might be that she quizzes him about what he's been doing, subjecting him to cross-examination and triangulation. She, of course, will receive fuel as a consequence of him returning and being proximate, better than that fuel down the telephone, far juicier, much more of it, when you're in person. It might be that there are some residual benefits to tap into as a consequence of his return. but chiefly it would be about controlling him. Might it be that he hasn't returned because he's becoming increasingly sick of the way that he's treated? Might it be that being back in Blighty is causing a reduction in his own emotional thinking because he's staying out of certain arenas in relation to his wife? He's not physically proximate to her. The level of communication between the two may well be reduced. She might be busy about other things. He's engaging in other things, so she's not repeatedly hoovering him through telephone calls and text messages. There would likely, of course, be some form of communication still. Or perhaps she's given him a silent treatment because he went off to Blighty, that she's displeased by his attendance and therefore isn't answering the phone to him. That way she asserts control over him. He is being devalued. And then he decides, well, if she's being mean to me, I may as well stay here. It might be that he's seeking some relief from the atmosphere and environment that he's been experiencing in Monty Shit Show. It might just be the case that having come because he wanted to appear in court, that he finds himself feeling better because he's away from her. Many victims of the narcissist will attest to that spending that time away, particularly where they're being given a silent treatment which actually grants them some form of relief, enables them to take stock of matters. Now, as I've explained, Harry's not going to see things clearly, but what he will recognise is that if he's away from her with her repeated needling of him, putting him down, nagging him, triangulating him, circular conversations, etc., he will think to himself, well, actually, I'm rather pleased to get some silence. Phew, I'm not having my ear chewed. And therefore, that may well have caused him to decide, I'm going to stay in the United Kingdom for longer. Quite what he's doing here is anybody's guess. There's no reports of him being seen at Bonker's night spot, throwing some shapes, throwing back the G&Ts, and then going on to Abracababra afterwards for a large doner kebab. Of course, the Paps haven't found him, which is interesting because apparently he fears for his life and he's hounded by them 24 hours a day. Or might it be the case that, of course, they only turn up when they're called by Harry's wife? And it might be that, essentially, he is having time out from her. Of course, it could well be the case that he's back in Los Angeles and that this information is correct. But operating on the basis that he has not gone back, is it because she has told him to stay away? No. Most likely, she is displeased with him going in the first place. He is being given an elongated silent treatment. And therefore he's decided, well, if you're going to be like that with me, I'll just stay here a little bit longer. Eventually, of course, she'll hoover him back in. He will shift from black to white, and then she'll call and either brush over it as if nothing has happened, or will give some false contrition. I'm sorry I didn't speak to you. It was just that I was hurt by you going to Britain. You know how much I love and miss you. Yada, yada. Flattery, laying it on thick. And, of course, he will fall for it, because ultimately he still does love his wife, and he just wants a peaceful existence with her. Those of you that have been ensnared by narcissists will recognise that notwithstanding your disapproval of the way that you've been treated and perhaps some ongoing concerns, often you just kept your mouth shut because, well, the narcissist was being nice to you and it was calm and you wanted that as opposed to the ongoing war that was happening. So with Harry, it may well be the case that as a consequence of his recent trip to London, which threatened her sense of control, she subjected him to a silent treatment, and his reaction to that, which is often the case of some victims, is, well, seeing as you don't want to talk to me, I'll stay away for a bit longer. And, in the words of that brilliant band, Depeche Mode, I'll enjoy the silence. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.